How important is social media in today's world of coaching?
In what context? Just in general?
Just in general.
Social media. I mean, I think it depends upon your platform that you're going to use it with, but it's way more important now than what it was even 5 years ago. I mean, look at there's a couple of coaches here, like the TikTok coach. Shout out. But yeah, I mean, look at him. It's influenced him and helped him, and really put him on the map just in regards of letting people or allowing people to really notice him, notice how good of a coach he is, right? And then really from there kind of launch him up the chain of coaching.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, because we did connect over quarantine and COVID, played a couple Madden games and had a couple good conversations.
Who won?
But I blew it in the fourth quarter.
Oh.
Blew a 3-touchdown lead. I don't want to talk about it. But Marco is exactly who he is today as when I first met him and he was still down in the valley.
That's awesome.
And I think that right there is one of the reasons he's where he's at. And that's one of the reasons Washington State looked at him and was like, this is a guy that can help us.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone knew that what you saw was exactly what you got.
Mm-hmm.
He was nothing but humble and approachable and thankful through the whole process.
Yep.
And that was one of the biggest reasons I think that his approach to social media ended up being a major game changer for him.
I just was playing because I love the game. And it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Below 6 in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Flip side. There's the good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the bad. It's one of those things to where it takes you a lifetime to, create character and get that reputation and people to, recognize who you are and all the good that you do. And then all of a sudden one tweet and everything's in flames all of a sudden. So it's kind of one of those things to where the bad is, it's awful. It's really bad. It can ruin your career.
And it's really easy to.
100%, yeah.
Because it's an extremely slippery slope. I remember personally, for the longest time, I made my social media private on all platforms for as long as I felt necessary.
Yeah.
And then when I decided that it might have been hindering my ability to network, help kids, this, that, and the other, I had a long conversation with myself about, do I start over?
Yeah.
Do I eliminate this? Yeah. Do I eliminate this profile and start from scratch?
Yeah.
Or do I take the time to go back and delete anything that I think might have been stupid and was tweeted when I was 19, 20 years old?
Yeah.
Or do I just keep it private and say, I'm going to have a coaching account and a personal account? And I know guys that have done all three. I know guys that have started over. I know guys that have gone back and deleted. And I know guys that have the account they made when they were in college and the account they made when they started getting into the profession and coaching.
Yeah. But don't you think if you have like separate accounts, it's like, well, can you not just be who you are? Is that not acceptable? Like, are you doing other things on the outside of your other account? Is that, that's your inappropriate lifestyle. That's your appropriate lifestyle. And you know what I mean? Like, and then this is your coaching one.
For sure. And I think a lot of times, that's not what I did. I went back and
I'm not saying
I spent a lot of time. I went back and spent a lot of time to clean up all the stupidness from college and, early 20s. Just saying dumb things or liking dumb things. But I think the value in that separation of having, the account you've always had and creating one that's more of your professional account is, it does allow you to enter conversations
I can see
that you may not want kids seeing you enter. Like for me, I think of it from a hypothetical. For me, if I did have those accounts as an economics teacher, as a government teacher, one of my biggest things is I try and maintain my personal views as personal views and not press them on my students, allow them to form their own, be willing to present both sides of an argument. Even though intrinsically I may disagree with the side I'm presenting, it's a presentation of information, and the interpretation is left up to them once they have as much of the information as possible. And I lose that if I have that account available and I have those conversations and kids can see that. Now, obviously, that's a relatively innocent hypothetical, but you can imagine how that could play out in other conversations and in other topics.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem with society today. It's like there's no grace. Like nobody forgives anymore. So it's like, even if you had it on your personal account or whatever, whatever it may be, somebody ends up getting it, finding it, because that's what people do. They dig now, and all of a sudden now it gets out, and you're this whole other person, and well, you're this guy, you support this or whatever, and it's like you just ruin everything forever off that one little tweet. Or Facebook post, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's a major issue.
I saw a video. This is not related to coaching or football, but it is related to social media. I saw a video on TikTok of a lady whose the sole purpose of her account is to expose.
Just like trolling everybody?
She finds people who create TikToks that she deems to be inappropriate, and then she does like her Inspector Gadget research and puts their first name, last name, Facebook, employer. That's the sole purpose of her page.
What are we doing? What are we doing here?
And legitimately, this is a relatively popular page. It's a really popular page, and they feel that they're doing good. They feel like and it doesn't matter. It's because it's left up to self-interpretation. Somebody could have put something out there that's a joke or along those lines, but their interpretation is that.
It just pissed me off.
Yeah, sorry. But those are the things that exist, and we can't do anything about them, and we don't like them, but we have to be aware of them.
Yeah. I mean, you remember back in 2015, 2016, all the little projects that I was doing for Joey?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So one of the big projects, and it wasn't for coaching, but it was just for the Elite 11, but one of them was social media.
Hold on. I just want to pick up that name that he just dropped, working directly for the Elite 11. Don't worry, I got it. You can continue to tell your story.
Appreciate it. Joey Roberts, and shout out Joey Roberts too, like the hardest worker, best ideas. I mean, that dude gets it. If it wasn't for him, Elite 11 wouldn't be where it is today. Seriously. So anyway, doing projects for him, and one of them was the social media, and I had to scrub. Can't remember what class it was, 15 or 16 or something like that, but I had to scrub their accounts, and the whole point was just to really, I would create a whole Google Doc, Word doc of screenshots, and then what I thought about the followers, and scrubbing through those. And some of those kids, I mean, they already got the blue check by the time they're a freshman or something like that in high school. And so it was really to say, okay, if I was to put all of these pictures on one Google Doc, what does it say about you? All right. And so a lot of those kids didn't realize, like, dang, I'm 17 years old. I've got 20,000 followers, 30,000 followers. Like, how many people are actually like watching me? I need to be a great role model. And it was eye-opening for a lot of them. And even for me too, because it was like a lot of those kids didn't know the people that they followed 4 or 5 years ago, and the content that those people they followed 4 or 5 years ago were putting out, that they're maybe seeing every single day. And as you know, what you put in is what you put out, right? So it was crazy, very eye-opening.
That's one of those things that, a couple weeks ago we were having one of our character building conversations with our team, and broken up into unit groups. And this is something Coach Kaz told to us when I was playing, and it's something that has always resonated with me, but it needs to be directly correlated to social media, because like you just said, they didn't know those people when they followed them.
Yeah.
But they chose to follow them, and now they're in a situation to where that could have a negative reflection on them.
Yep.
So the people you bring into your life, you need to maintain or connect with them with certain expectations or certain understandings.
Yeah.
And those understandings are reason, season, lifetime.
Yep.
If you can't positively put a relationship or a friendship into one of those 3 categories, you need to scrub them from your timeline. You need to delete them.
Yeah.
Because if they're not in one of those categories in a positive manner, then they're not going to help you reach whatever goal it is that you say you're reaching. And unfortunately, social media is a major aspect of the pathway to young people and adults reaching their goals.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's it kind of goes back to what Coach Kerrigan would always say at head coach at UTPB. Perception's reality, and it's it's you can argue that all day long and disagree, but for the most part, perception is reality. And so, like what you said, who you have around you, what you have around you, what you read, what you listen to, it completely matters.
I heard that a lot growing up from my dad, and I didn't fully understand it until I started working. And it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it could come down to it doesn't matter how good you are at your job. I distinctly remember having a seasonal job when I was still in college where I was doing what they were asked, and he was like, yeah, but every time boss man comes around, you're sitting down or you're doing this. I'm like, yeah, but I'm sitting down doing the work. It doesn't matter. All he sees is a guy that's supposed to be young and moving stuff and being more physical labor than mental labor.
Yep. Seated.
And it took me years to really wrap my head around that. And it's like you said, it's really easy to push back and be like, man, whatever. Like I was doing what I was supposed to do. What thing on the list didn't get checked off?
Right.
But the perception is now it makes it harder, especially with something like seasonal work, makes it harder to come back around.
Yep.
Next time you're home, next time you're off a couple weeks and you want to put some money in your pocket, oh, that's the kid that sat down a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just stealing Coach Kerrigan stuff tonight, so I apologize. But it's great stuff. I remember one time he was saying, you're a commercial, right? You are an advertisement. And if you're watching TV and it's a bad commercial, you're not going to buy that product. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to make it even more aggressive. And there's a camera on me all day long. And that camera sitting behind it is, GMs, right? My parents, whoever, right? People that, matter, opinions matter to me, whatever it may be. But like, if they're watching that, what do they view of me? And so that being said, it's like, man, I got to, hold myself accountable, make sure I do this, make sure I do that. And it does make a difference because it's very easy to kind of, get back, get lazy. And it's like, no, you think about that, that'll get you perked right up.
Which, by the way, because he brought up Coach Kerrigan a couple times and because we did both work with him, obviously Trenton more than me, but the connection still existing, and a couple other guys on staff, Coach Minio, Coach Martin. Major shout out to the undefeated University of Texas Permian Basin.
Let's go.
Football team.
Turn the program around.
Yeah, finished the spring undefeated.
Yep.
This is year 4.
4 or 5. Not sure.
Young program, but and then also major shout out to the mullet.
It's so aggressive.
So aggressive.
I couldn't do it, but yeah.
No shot. I mean, obviously I can't. I mean, we all know. We've seen the cartoon thumbnail. But even if I could, respect.
Falcon up.
Yeah, falcon up, baby. All right, so one of the things that I want us to make sure and bring in, okay, we've had some pretty relative conversations and whatnot, but I've had a couple people ask me, who is this guy that, because you've been out of state and because of some of the relationships I've built here in this community, they're interested to know more about you. So I want you to tell everybody listening one of your better coaching or playing stories, whether it be when we were at Tarleton or one of the schools you've been a coordinator at, something that is unique to either that school or the coaching profession that will give a little bit of insight into your pathway and, the world that you've lived in as a coach.
I mean, I'm not very entertaining at all, so. And I'll tell
It's a complete lie, by the way. He's just on the spot right now, so he's trying to deflect.
Yeah. I'll tell one story, and there's a great chance it's totally like you should have been there to see it, because it might not be funny at all. So,
I'm sure I'll die laughing, and there'll be people listening
you're gonna know about it. So will a couple other people, but others will be like, "What the hell he's talking about?" Yeah, so Tarleton was there from 2010 to 2014. You came in 2013. Yeah. And so anyway, my whole pathway to get to Tarleton is a story in itself for another time. Unbelievable. But anyway, blessing in disguise. And so I get there. I'm in crutches, a boot, all that stuff for the first 2 years. Surgery didn't work, so I ended up actually coaching my last few years. And so anyway, I get there, and for some reason, the head coach at the university thought that I won a state championship in hurling. I was a state champion hurler. I've never jumped a hurdle in my entire life, ever. And I can't tell anybody no. I'm like a people pleaser. I'm just that dude. And so anyway, I remember he brings it up, and he's like, we're in a staff meeting, and all the GAs, as you know, if you're a coach, you kind of just sit in the back table. Your role is to not say a damn word. You just take notes, and you just say, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And so I'm sitting back there, and we're going over some recruiting stuff or whatever. And some kid that was like a hurdler, and he's like, what was the time? And when the coach is like, I think it was like a 13 or something like that in the 110. And I'm sitting back there like, okay, yeah, cool. Hopefully I don't get called on or get reamed this meeting. And then all of a sudden, well, Coach Kirklin was a state champion hurdler. And my face goes beet red. I've never jumped a hurdle in my life. And everybody just, whoom, eyes on me. TK, what was your time? Oh, my God. So I just pull one, out of the air. I was 12.9. And everybody's like, oh, my God, TK, he's an incredible hurler.
You're an Olympian.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, I was, that. So for the rest of my career there, for the next 2 years, every coach would bring that up. Anytime there's a hurler, hey, he ran this time, TK, is it decent or what? Yeah. So I actually had to Google the next 2 years just every once in a while, hey, what are good hurdle times for 110 and 300? And that was actually a thing that bothered me every single day, because I had to make sure that I was on point, because there was no returning at that point.
No,
I couldn't be
deep.
Actually, coach, you know what? When you said that a year ago, it never actually happened. I was fast in the 100, but that was it. So, yeah. I mean, again, totally could have been a terrible story where it's not funny, but if you were there, you'll understand.
Which is still a running joke now. we got a text last week. It was like, well, I just thought you'd be out here coaching these hurdlers, state champion.
Yeah. And
to piggyback off of that, the same head coach in a meeting that I was actually there for, once I did get there, I rode the Baylor coattails, almost to every job that I've ever gotten, and I'm totally okay with it. Which, by the way, shout out, Elite Eight, men and women's.
Yeah.
Taking care of business. Women's big overtime win.
Yep.
And the men holding off Villanova. So, we're doing our thing in the tournament.
Yep, keep it rolling.
But same head coach. This is my first or second staff meeting. And, I'm sitting down with the GA, peasants in the corner.
Yep.
And he was like, McClain, talk about going fast. How many plays y'all used to run? And I was like, what? When I was playing, I wasn't counting plays. I was like, 40. And I was like, the number I threw out there was so irrelevant to being an up-tempo offense that I distinctly remember. And I've known these people for a grand total of a half hour, and they're all just like, okay, this kid's full of crap. Yeah. He clearly didn't go to Baylor. And I just had to just not speak for another week. But one of the better stories about, because, Tarleton has now transitioned out of Division II into Division I.
Yep.
But one of the better stories that came out of that experience was the Eastern New Mexico game, for a multitude of reasons. And I don't know how much from that trip you remember.
Dude, I feel like I don't remember that at all. I don't know. I have no clue. I mean, I know I went there, but was it a Blackwater?
It was Blackwater Draw in New Mexico. Yeah. And they got a new stadium. They don't play there anymore, as far as from what I understand.
Good for them.
Yeah, big move. Yeah. But a couple things happened just in general on that trip that just made it, and it had nothing to do with the game. We're getting ready. It's an away game, and we know we're going to be on a bus for 2.5 days. But head coach is getting everybody prepared, and then he was kind of testy one day. And he just starts going off about how, like, this team's disrespectful to the conference and, you know, they don't like you and how they're going to treat you. And then he goes on to describe what the visitors' locker room was like and how at one point they had gone to a game out there. And I'm pretty sure it was when he was at Tarleton as the defensive coordinator, but they had gone out there and there was one toilet in the entire locker room. And it was very stereotypical, like, edge, like perimeter lockers,
like little hooks everywhere, like
right?
Like one hook.
But it and then the bathroom had no walls and it was in the dead center of the room, and so there was a toilet, a urinal, and a sink directly in the middle of the room. So that meant, like, if some kid didn't take care of business before he got there, he just had to sit there in front of all of his teammates to go to the bathroom.
New Mexico.
And so that's the only thing I can think about is, like, we did go out a day early. We stayed at the hotel. And all I could think about was, like, you got to clear your system before this bus rolls out of this hotel parking lot. Like, take no chances. And that was the first thing I checked on as soon as we walked in the door. And the setup was pretty much the same, but they had put up, like, some stall-type walls, but there was no door on it. But then fast forward, you know, so we have that whole debacle because, like, with that kind of setup, where's the smell going to permeate straight up and out, right? To all crevices of the room. But then fast forward, the game ends. The game ends, and we get on the charter bus and we start pulling out, and the bus in front of us starts pouring black smoke onto the interstate. I can't believe. Do you remember this now?
Yeah, I remember that.
And
yeah, it was so mad.
So then we had to. We got stopped 3 times from Portales, New Mexico to Lubbock by highway patrolmen that were like, "Sir, this vehicle is inoperable," and we had to stop at a truck stop in Lubbock, and they had to drive another charter bus out there to pick us up, transfer all of our stuff, and get us home. And the bus that they sent us was smaller in capacity than the one we took out there. So you had, like, the entire offensive line. You know, usually your starters, like, they get some space.
Yeah.
And you've got all these fifth-year seniors just crammed on top of each other because we lost, like, 10 seats in the bus. And it took us a collection of, like, I think it was almost 10 hours to get from Blackwater Draw back to Stephenville. And that was pretty much the story that kind of encompassed, like, the D2 life.
Yeah.
You know, there's some great football and there's some great memories, but, like, you just experience things like that, and you can't do anything but laugh.
Well, yeah, it's such a eye-opening just experience, and when you actually see the difference from Division I, Division II. And I'm not talking about talent. There's a great talent in Division II.
We talked about him last week, Deshaun.
Yeah, Deshaun.
Freak.
Rufus Johnson.
Yeah.
That dude's a freak. Anyway, but from a resource standpoint, like, wow.
It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're going to Delta State one year, and, you know, coach is like, hey, we're going to leave at midnight. That way everybody can go to sleep. You know, so everybody, you know, takes their ZQuil around 11:30. I'm sure there were other things taken as well that make you relax. And so we're over here just, you know, everybody's kind of relaxed. Okay, bus is coming on, and it's 12 o'clock. Bus is not there. It's 1 a.m. Bus is not there. And at this point, everybody's just trying to fight it. Like, I'm so tired right now. Like, but I have to stay up because I can't miss the bus. It goes on to, like, I think it was like 6 a.m. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was 6, but it was a legitimate
Probably
3.5 hours.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Like 3 hours of having to fight off ZQuil. I'm a big ZQuil fan. But 3 hours of having to fight that off. Like, things get weird. Mentally.
Real weird.
Real weird. I'm like, where am I right now? And next thing we know, we left like at whatever it was. I guess maybe 5 a.m. and then traveled 13 hours or something like that. I don't know what it was.
Was this a Delta State game?
Yeah.
Which let, you know, thanks for teeing that one up. You know, we got to play Delta State in Mississippi, but we had to make a pit stop on the way in Memphis. I don't know if you guys have looked at a map lately, but it's not on the way. Went all the way to Memphis, went to a completely different state, did walk through at Memphis, had to have some barbecue for pregame. So, but yeah, some great times. But the big thing to take away from it is, like, yes, there's a discrepancy in funds and resources and things of that nature. But the football like we said, I mean, there's still dudes at that level.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for that game to, like, this spring should have been a major and I don't know if it was because I'm not tied into that level anymore. But from an evaluation standpoint, it should have been big time for those FCS and Division II schools that are playing because they're the only games on.
Yeah,
right. They're not having
absolutely.
They're not having to fight any of that.
Yeah.
And what's his name? A quarterback from North Dakota State, projected first round draft.
Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just playing.
Yep.
So like.
Yep.
It's just really cool. You know, we're trying to find the silver lining in a lot of this. The ripple effect of COVID, and I think that's one that those lower level aspects of football can really take advantage of.
Yeah, it's 365 of football.
Love it.
I mean, it's awesome.
So you and I, definitely changing gears here, but you and I have been talking pretty much all week about a couple of different pieces of equipment and pieces of technology. And as somebody who usually sees almost eye to eye with you, we've definitely had a little bit of pushback on some of the technology you're using for football, for coaching.
He argues with everything.
Okay.
About everything.
But that's neither here nor there. The stance I was taking comes from trying to look at it from a whole program staff perspective. But different technologies become a big part of the football world over the past 5 to 10 years, whether it be equipment, software, video technology with, Huddle changed the game in 2012, or 2011, whenever it was. But how do you handle that transition from having worked on multiple staffs? How do you handle that transition from a staff that was heavily technology influenced to one that might not be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing with all of that is you have to make sure you know the value in it yourself, and why that product is so advantageous over others. And it could be a personal thing with just maybe as a coordinator you like it. But given the answer to, other staff members as far as like, well, I like it and that's good enough, it's not. Because especially if you're a younger coach and you have some older coaches on staff who have kind of done things, by pencil or whatever it may be, the last 60 years, whatever. And again, there's no right or wrong way. But I think the most important thing is making sure once you explain the value, everybody has to do it. Because I've been on staffs before where like we've come up with something like that, whether it's just play, huddle, whatever it may be. And if not everybody is on the same page there, and you kind of allow one of those staff members to not get on that same page, and well, I'm just going to keep doing it my own way. It's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But it's better to be uniform with everything. If everybody's going to be on just play, everybody then jumps on just play, and they all do it that way. Just because now you're uniform across the board. Kids have the exact same technology. It's not, well, this group has this and this group has that. You know what I mean? And so I think it's explaining the value, knowing the value behind it, and then making sure that everybody does it.
Yeah, and the piece that I always try and take away from it is I just want to make sure that when we implement something along those lines, it's going to increase our efficiency.
Yeah.
Because no matter what your staff makeup is, no matter what school you're at, there's going to be a learning curve that's different for every member on the staff. And it's like we talked about today, you've got to lay a super solid foundation within that whatever, that technology, that software, that equipment.
Yep.
You got to lay that foundation that's going to allow you to build that efficiency and diversify how productive that piece of technology is for your program. And if you don't do that, then it only works against you as you get into the season. You may not see the negative aspects of it during the summer or during 2 days, but when you're crunched for time because you end up having to play a playoff game on a Thursday instead of a Friday, and things that people usually think that they have 8 hours to do, now they only have 3, are they going to be able to fulfill those expectations with a smaller time window?
Yeah.
are we maximizing our efficiency? So anytime we look at new equipment or, boss man asks my opinion on something, that's where my mind goes. Is this something that we can adapt and implement within our staff that will see a pretty heavy increase in efficiency? And if the answer is yes, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think the number one question you have to ask yourself anytime you're looking at any new gadget is, does it fit within your prep? Because there's a lot of cool things out there where it's like, man, that's awesome. But for what we do and how we do it, it literally has no purpose. Now, if it's so good that, you know what, we need to make that part of our prep, 100% do that. I think one of the best things that COVID did was really it forced, us to kind of adapt to the younger generation, getting digital, getting on the internet and having to, do Zooms and whatnot. I'll be very, very interested with, just from a football IQ level, with how much more that IQ is probably increased or potentially decreased depending on the staff that's been, Zooming every single weekend or whatever it may be, sending, more diagrams out, and the kids are actually, more favorable to that than maybe looking at a whiteboard. I don't know, but it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah, I think the polarization of that football IQ is going to come from the approach, and we've talked about approach a little bit previously, but if you used technology to implement conceptual teaching,
yeah,
it's going to change, right? It's going to change the football IQ of your team. But if you used technology for positional or specific detailed coaching, then I don't want to say it's going to have a negative impact, because I don't know. I haven't been a part of that, but it's not going to be the same. So I think the rise and fall or the change of a football IQ of a program through COVID would be predicated on how the staff approach their communication with their team. I know that we put a lot of emphasis, not just through COVID or the summer, but also through the season, that like, this is who we are, and you don't play X, Y, H, Z. You don't play, LR. For us, it's SLRT. You don't play that. You play offense, and this is what the offense does. So if you're one of the 5, you can do all.
Yeah.
If you're one of the other 6, you can do all.
Yep.
And I'll be totally transparent. That approach, because of it being my first year and missteps that I took just from, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. It had a negative impact on us early.
Yep.
But it allowed us to grow and diversify and adjust, like we've talked about, as the season went on. So, but I also know that I don't know, but I would assume that if you approached it from the position-specific coaching, then you should have been more mid-season form early, mm-hmm. if that was your approach.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we, this past year at Lipscomb Academy that we did a great job of, not necessarily at the beginning, but, after the first couple of weeks, I feel like a lot of coaches, because of COVID and the restrictions with it, you weren't allowed, obviously, to do tons of physical things. And so a lot of coaches kind of became reliant upon everything being, on the internet and this and that. And where that is much easier, I think a lot of the players I started seeing, even quarterback, more of a true kinesthetic learner, those guys fall behind. And so it's almost having to make up, from, okay, well, I know this kid here is a kinesthetic and he's visual and he's auditory, but you kind of have to know that just as a teacher in general too. You have to know that. That way now, if it's what, all of the, 95% of our offensive guys, they got it, but there's 2 or 3 that struggle visually. They need to actually, be there, feel it, do it. Let's have that walkthrough. And so I think keeping that in mind is huge.
Yeah. Coach Elliott was able to kind of cover all bases with that, because I know that he was zooming. He coached offensive line this year. He was zooming with the kids, but something that I think that, he didn't want to lead on how much he enjoyed it, but one thing that I think that he really enjoyed doing was he came down with another coach and he filmed himself doing drills, doing first and second steps with all of our different schemes. And that way those guys could put that video up, and it wasn't, lines on, you know, a playbook. Hey, you're going to step down and, you know, carry this guy to that guy, things like that. It's, you know, you need to stand up. And if Headman, who's been up since 3:30 in the morning, worked out for 2.5 hours, did his AD responsibilities, and is now in the is now in the team meeting room filming this. If he can do it, you know, you need to get up and make sure your steps look like his steps.
Yeah.
Because if your steps look like his steps, we're gonna be a dang good football team.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mad respect too for Coach Elliott. Those of you who have not seen Coach Elliott or know Coach Elliott, great man, great human, great coach, but he is a giant. That dude, oh my gosh, he is. I mean, he's one of the biggest coaches I've ever seen in my entire life. And yeah, well, I'm still sleeping. He's up and, you know, doing a superset with like RDLs and then doing a full 400 RDLs, 400. So mad respect there.
Yeah. Oh, you got up early at 4:30? Yeah, that's not early.
Yeah. I know. I thought I got up early, not compared to him. So one thing I always wanted to really ask you. So Salina being very well known nationally, not just in Texas, but Salina is a very, very well known school. Community around the nation, and for all sports, but you know, the one that has obviously the most impact being football. And so that being said, it's one of the very few places around where it's like your old school one horse town type of place. And so just as you personally, because we talked about me personally earlier, just as you personally, do you ever foresee yourself wanting to go to a multi-school district or staying in, you know, more of a one horse town and trying to be, you know, because I see pros and cons too. Like I really like being able to go walk into a Walmart, and whether you like Salina or you hate Salina, all there is Salina. Versus like you walk into a Walmart and you might see, you know, Salina East, Salina North, you know, Salina West or whatever it may be.
Being here has changed my answer to that question. In 2015, when I got this job, extremely fortunate because of the tradition, knowing what Salina was capable of and known for, and the talent that I stepped into. You know, it was very much that first year, you know, make sure they're at practice. They'll take care of the rest type thing.
Yeah.
Great kids, always great kids within the program. At that point in my career, man, I thought I was going to see the state, you know, being from the west side of the Metroplex and you know, Central Texas for college, but returning to DFW afterwards, I thought that coaching was going to take me to the Valley, to West Texas, to, you know, to the Houston area, to East Texas. I thought it was going to take me all over, and I was totally prepared for it. I wanted to coach a lot of football and win a lot of games and do all of that stuff. And, you know, when you're 23, 24, 25, it's really easy to not buy into the value of the communal connection that you have. And so at that point, I wouldn't have cared, right?
Yeah.
I could have worked at, you know, a DISD or, you know, a Humble ISD, you know, one of those places that's got, or a Cypress ISD down outside of Houston.
They got 35 schools.
Right. Any of those places, I would have been all for it. Yeah. And not that now I've reached a point where it's like, oh no, those are terrible. But now I see so much value in being in a place to where we have a strong nucleus of our kids that have played together wearing the orange and white since they were in first and second grade. You know, we have a strong nucleus of our kids that they grew up watching the Bobcats on Friday nights. They grew up watching the Bobcats on Friday nights when some of our coaches were playing.
Right.
You know, and that's a big deal.
Right.
Not just to them, but to everybody else. The standard is known. You know, we had a couple come to Jesus meetings at different points throughout the season as an offense, and one of the things that I would tell our kids is the standard is the standard, and I didn't set it.
Yeah.
I'm just here to make sure that we do everything in our power to maintain it.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people who came before you that did this at an extremely high level, and they come back and want to make sure that you're upholding that tradition.
Yep.
And it's so cool, you know, to see kids be a part of that and buy into it and love to, you know, the sense of accomplishment for a guy that's been in the program and maybe he's not, you know, next level recruit. He's not a starter, but he's been in the program since he was in 7th grade, and he's a senior now. And he gets to go in that locker room and have his name above there, and he gets to put that varsity jersey on for the first time. That has a huge impact on kids, and I think so much of that comes from the fact that, like you said, we're not riding horses to school anymore, but, there's only one grocery store in Salina city limits, and everybody goes there, and you're going to see people on a regular basis. There's only one Mexican food place.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one barbecue place. Okay, and if you walk past downtown on the square, you're going to see a minimum of 15 to 20 people that and they know you. Yeah. And, it adds a level of transparency to the job that can, when you start a season a little rough like we did, it can make it tough to go outside. But at the same time, places like this, traditions like this, they also come with a nucleus of the community that says, hey, you're here doing everything you can to make us better, and you're helping us raise great men. We got your back.
Sure.
And there's a little bit of grace, like you talked about at the beginning. There's a little bit of grace in a place like this. And I think for the foreseeable future, for me professionally, for my family personally, we feel great in an environment like that.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I want to be in places to where we can be entrenched in the community, where you live in town, where kids know where you live and they're not afraid to come knock on your door and ask you something or help you do something. Just as much as these kids can lean on us, there's been times that my family leans on them and they answer the call tenfold. So for now, for the foreseeable future, I think communities and schools and environments like this is where we're supposed to be.
Sure. And by the way, there actually might be a horse being rode into the parking lot at Salina High School. Don't get that twisted. They're still extremely country, but totally get that. And there is no right or wrong. I mean, because for example, there's pros and cons to each. Obviously, I mean, I think on the flip side, there is attraction in being in a multi-school district and wanting to be kind of how I feel right now, wanting to make that school the school. And yeah, we are all, in this one school district and we're all a community, but intrinsically, everybody's going to know, that's one. I want to go to that one, just because of what they do, how they represent themselves, all that stuff. So there's pros and cons to both. I don't think there's any right or wrong. But yeah, just very interested in your answer there, and I respect that. I mean, I can see that Salina's a great community from what I've seen, and you got it rolling.